Now, what happens then is total costs, demand curve. Cost curve. What happens is that your revenue follows along this line. In other words, your first unit, you're going to get that much revenue. Your second unit, you're going to get that much. And you will essentially keep going up to this point. You will produce up to the point where demand is equal to average total cost. So, I mean, again, where's your marginal revenue curve going to lie in the perfect price discrimination? Demand curve, right? Means that you're going to keep producing up to here. Your area of profit will be here. This will be the quantity you produce. This will be the cost, right? Where the quantity intersects average total cost. And this here will be your area of profit. You follow that? Any questions on this? Do you think of an example of where we have perfect price discrimination? Think of something where each person that walks into a store pays a different price for essentially the same product. This is one that I think of all the time. Car dealers, yeah. Car dealer, right? Just about everybody pays a different price for a car. I mean, some people come in, and I don't know, but I'm sure there's some people that probably come in and pay sticker for the car. And then after that, it's just, you know, how skilled you are at bargaining, or how skilled the salesperson is at bargaining back, or whatever it is. But essentially, every person probably walks out paying a different price for essentially the same car. So you come pretty close to perfect price discrimination when you talk about selling automobiles. Questions? Okay. One final thing I want to look at under monopolies is regulated monopolies. Make sure that my demand curve crosses behind this point here, just for purposes of illustration. Put my demand curve like this, and my marginal revenue curve like that. Okay. Okay, now, if this were not a regulated monopoly, what would be the profit maximizing quantity? How do we find it? Okay, MR equals MC, so we go up here, and this is the price we would charge. And so this point up here is what we would call profit maximizing price. Now, when regulation enters, when we have regulations, the purpose of regulation is to simulate, we talked about this before, to simulate competition. That's what we have, that's what regulation is really all about. When we try to regulate IPS or US West or the cable company or whatever, what we're saying is, okay, you're a monopoly, you're a natural monopoly, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you monopoly rights. In other words, we're actually going to protect, and that's what we do. We protect IPS as a monopoly. We say, you're a monopoly, we will not let anybody come in and compete with you. US West, we will not allow another phone company to come in and compete with you. Now, in return for that privilege of being a protected monopoly, you agree, and we're going to make sure you do it, you agree that you are going to behave as though you were faced by competition, by pure competition. In other words, behave as though you had no competition. Excuse me, behave as though you had competition. You were in a purely competitive environment. Now, the problem is there's two ways of looking at how a purely competitive firm would operate. So it gives us two approaches to regulation. The first approach is what's called a fair return. Remember that we said that in pure competition, in equilibrium, what kind of profit would the firm earn? Exactly a normal profit. Okay? So if we use that argument that says, well, if you're supposed to behave like a purely competitive firm, that means that you should earn exactly a normal profit. Okay? Well, exactly a normal profit would be follow the demand curve down to where the demand curve is equal to average total cost. Okay? So this point here gives you a price, and we call this the fair return price. That's the fair return price. And most regulation is done this way. There's a third way, or sorry, I should say second way as far as regulation goes. It's called socially optimal price. And under socially optimal, we said, well, when we looked at the purely competitive firm, what we saw is that the firm operated where marginal revenue was equal to marginal cost, right? Which was also what the price was. Because remember, under pure competition, we had a horizontal demand curve which passed through the point where marginal revenue was equal to marginal price. So there's another school of thought that says socially optimal means go to this point right here where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And if you were purely competitive, your demand curve would pass right through that point. And then this is the price you would be charging. Socially optimal price. Now you can see if you go to the socially optimal price, there is a possibility, now this I did draw intentionally, there is a possibility here that you could lose money. Now, there's also a possibility you could make money, make economic profits. But those are our three approaches to regulation. Well, I should say really the two approaches. This would be unregulated, and then the two approaches would be a fair return price or a socially optimal price. Which one? Oh, she's got a marginal revenue.
So what, with the socially optimal price, what's the demand?
I'm sorry, maybe you're right. I'll think about this a minute.
Page 937, just go by there.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, I know it's tough for you guys to correct, it's a lot easier for me to correct. And it should be here, demand. Because under pure competition, I'm working backward. Under pure competition, the demand curve is the same thing as your marginal revenue curve. So we'd say, yeah, go back to this, which is the same thing, they lose money. But it would be the intersection of demand and marginal cost. And they say, well, demand is your marginal revenue. Which in this case, you would lose money. I could just as easily have gone up above where you would have made money. Yeah, you're right. I apologize for that. Supposed to be across the demand. And again, what they're saying is, well, demand is essentially marginal revenue. That's for the question. Question. Okay, let's take a break and come back. Okay, actually we can go through these. I think we can go through these next two chapters tonight, but we can get pretty far because we covered most of the basics. We're just applying the same rules, like I said, essentially changing the shape of the demand curve. Looking at the next chapter then, 27, monopolistic competition. Okay, remember the quick review of monopolistic competition, you have this down, here's the most important thing. You have a relatively large number of sellers here. Each firm has a small market share. The idea, as far as, what is a relatively large number, what is a few sellers in this instance? A relatively large number is characterized by the fact that collusion is impossible. Or I should say that collusion is not profitable. So you can't benefit. In other words, 2 or 3 people can't get together and try to fix prices. If 2 or 3 of you together won't have enough control on the market. There's too many people for you to try and do any kind of price fixing or anything like that. There's too many sellers. Okay. But we do have product differentiation. And because of the product differentiation, there is a lot of non-price competition or advertising, because a different product, we have something to advertise now. the demand curve for the industry is downsloping. And for the monopolistically competitive firm, the individual firm, okay, so this would be for the industry. The firm would also have a downsloping demand curve. About like this. We take average total cost. And marginal cost. And put a downsloping demand curve. And downsloping marginal revenue curve. So that's for the firm, monopolistically competitive firm. Okay, in this situation, how do we find profit maximizing quantity? Marginal revenue equals marginal quantity.
So cool, I'll mess it up.
What? Marginal revenue equals marginal cost, yes, that finds quantity, where that intersects the demand curve, that gives us the price, right? This gives us the quantity, and what we have in here is an area of profit, right? Back. Thank you. Fact looks somewhat similar to, at this point, somewhat similar to the pure monopolist. Okay, and as far as, you know, is it going to be a steep sloping in the book? I think they have more of a shallow slope on the demand curve. It just depends on the elasticity of demand for the product there. Actually, it probably would be. This is probably pretty steep for a monopolistically competitive. It probably would be more gradual slope. Be a scale. Now, if this is the situation in a monopolistically competitive firm, what's going to happen? Okay, the characteristics, you've got a relatively large number of product differentiation, easy entry and easy exit. Okay, so more firms are going to enter. Okay, you do have product differentiation, but they're very small barriers or insignificant, sometimes called insignificant barriers to entry. So it's very easy for firms to enter in. So essentially, the same thing is going to happen here that happened under pure competition. And that is that more firms are going to enter into the industry until the economic profits disappear. Okay, so what's going to happen is we've got this kind of situation where we have demand and supply in the industry. This is the price, but it's generating economic profits. So more firms are going to enter in, shifting the supply curve out. We're going to drop down to a new lower price. The demand curve stays the same, which means that each individual firm is going to have to accept a smaller piece of the total demand, right? The demand curve for the product doesn't change. That means everybody's market share gets smaller. So the demand curve shifts back. And what will happen is, of course, the price is going to drop, and the price will drop until there's a normal profit. Now, here's what will happen, and here's where it differs from pure competition. Okay, look at the same thing here. I've got my average total cost here. Marginal cost. It will work out. I'll draw it carefully here. The demand curve is going to be something like this. And marginal revenue curve is going to be something like this. And again, we look for the profit maximizing quantity by looking at the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost. This gives us quantity, right? Quantity maximized. You follow up to find the price. This will be our maximizing price. Now again, it's going to be like that. You may accuse me of, well, drawing it to make it come out, but it will in fact come out this way. That this point of intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost, if I follow the quantity line up, it will come out to be the point exactly where the demand curve is tangent to the average total cost. So again, just like in pure competition, okay, after we go through this equilibrium process of firms entering and exit, being attracted by profits and chased out by losses, etc., we're going to end up with a long-run equilibrium where everyone's making a normal profit. However, what's the difference between this and pure competition? We're making a normal profit.
It's not more
Well,
efficient.
pure competition, demand curve.
Okay. Demand curve different, and so, yeah, the demand curve was tangent down here. This is the most efficient level. So they're making a normal profit, but they're not producing at the most efficient level. So this is the wastes, if you will, or a waste that is produced by monopolistic competition. The maximum efficiency is at the lowest average total cost because whatever is causing this, because of this elasticity of demand, the downslope in demand curve is not going to be tangent at its lowest point. So there's going to be some waste here. We have two things that contribute to monopolistic competition, or this non-price competition, if you will. Monopolistic competition. Okay. Two things that cause this type of an industry. One is called product differentiation. And what we're saying here is that we may in fact have, everybody may in fact be building the identical product, but somehow we have small differences. And the differences may simply be in perception. Okay? Again, we've talked about this before, that a lot of times we're talking about identical products simply with different packages around them. But if we perceive them to be different products, then they are in fact different products. And that's what product differentiation is. Advertising is a big producer of product differentiation. Okay? It convinces us there's a difference between Winston and Marlboro or Budweiser and whatever. And because of that, we consider them to be different products. Now, because of that argument, a lot of people say, well, advertising serves no useful purpose. In fact, advertising is detrimental because if you take like the beer industry, if we didn't have advertising, all beers would be the same. They would compete, or they wouldn't be any competition. There wouldn't be any competition in terms of non-price competition. assuming that all beer is the same, because we have this vigorous advertising, product differentiation has caused the demand curve to slope up. What happens is we're producing more for it than is what's efficient. And big beer, you can pick a number of, whether we're talking about toothpaste or soap, laundry detergent or something like that. And it's a little bit more productive than beer. And I mean, I'm not going to make a big thing about it, but probably bigger than you think is necessary. But there are other people that would, their whole life is dedicated to this argument. Economists whose whole life is dedicated to the argument that this is what advertising does to our economy. It produces wastes. Because if we didn't have advertising in these certain industries, then they'd be purely competitive and everybody producing at their most efficient level. But advertising shifts us from here to here. I'm sure everyone's got their opinion. I think that there is, in certain instances, there's probably some truth to that. In certain industries, yeah. And in certain industries, isn't true. But anyway, we do have product differentiation. The second thing that leads to monopolistic, that can lead to monopolistic competition, is what's called product development. Product development takes place over time. Now, the idea behind product development is that because there are so many sellers in the marketplace here, and because there is this vigorous competition, there is a powerful incentive to stay one, or try and stay a little bit ahead of your competitor. And one of the ways to stay a little bit ahead of your competitor is by trying to make your product a little bit better. Now again, some people might take the idea of product differentiation, which is try to create the perception that your product is a little bit better. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about actually making the product a little bit better. And at the very least, preserving your market share, if not actually increasing your profit share. Okay. Now the idea is that what we'd like to see is, of course, we'd like to see more effort placed into product development than into simply product differentiation. Again, product differentiation is simply letting the consumers know that there is a difference between your product and your competitor's product. That's differentiating between the two. Okay. Product development is actually creating some difference between the product. Now, once you do it, of course, you're sort of back to here, because once you've done product development, you have to go into advertising to at least inform consumers that you have a different product. But they are different things, differentiation versus product development. The nice thing about product development is that if successful, you can increase your profits, and then the profits can be used for more product development. You can in fact make yourself more efficient.